Welcome to East Coast DNA. Back with another guest of quite a bit of East Coast acclaim. A little surprised it took this long for me to get around to an interview with somebody from the Irish Descendants, and who better from the Irish Descendants than the one original member, Con O'Brien. Welcome, Con.
Thank you, Darcy. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't know what took you so long. I mean, come on.
Well, funny thing is, you wouldn't necessarily know the history behind this podcast, but as you can see with the logos and the coloring there too, we actually started this off as me and my brother, and the DNA was Darcy and Andrew, but
Okay.
the color scheme comes from our own Irish heritage with the Walsh last name.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's actually coloring from our family tartan.
Well, you got
So,
you got you're I'm in a place where there's lots of Walshes, I can tell you that.
oh
Amen.
yeah, I can
Amen.
imagine. So I'm curious, being that you are a little remote from my region, we had to get you here on Zoom as well, but I don't know, did you have much experience coming through? We had just before we started recording, we talked about Pictou, but did you have much experience in the 90s being in the Pictou County region at all?
Yeah, well, we would have been over there, as for some of our first show. Like I can remember when the deCoste Center opens.
Hmm.
So we would have played the deCoste Center. Regular stopping for us would have been, all parts of Nova Scotia. And festival work, Stan Rogers Festival. I mean, our very first foray outside of Newfoundland back in like 91 or late 91 would have been us driving over, taking the ferry,
Hmm.
driving to the very first show would have been in Sydney,
Hmm.
playing Free Club for Phil Davinsky, and then moving up to Nova up to Halifax then for our first performance at the lower deck. Lower deck is where we get our record deal.
Amazing.
The story of that is a great story, but again, that for us, Nova Scotia would be our first real stomping grounds outside of Newfoundland, and from around 92 to 94, we would have played. Back then, we were playing 2 weeks back to back at the lower deck every month for about 2 years.
Yeah, and
So
that's one thing we talk a lot on this show about, especially up and coming artists that are influenced by bands from the 90s. We talk a lot about the Halifax scene and a lot of the alternative indie bands coming up. But when we talk about the East Coast sound, we usually are referring to more traditional songs and traditional
sure.
instrumentation. So you kind of, with your history, you're like the perfect blend of both, where you do come from
Yeah.
that traditional folk, but you came right up through that era where people were really into buying music.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of options out there for people to make a
Well,
few bucks as a band.
outside of traditional, Celtic music, we would have been some of our big influences. Bands from here like Thomas Trio and the Red Albino. Big influence on us. They were a group of great kind of contemporary band that went across the country. We were young people. I was 22 years old when I started in the Irish Descendants, and the band Sloan
Hmm.
was on us. Chris was like they were, we were the same vintage
Hmm.
and doing it. We're from the East Coast. They were now going across this country, and it showed like that our music could actually be marketable outside. I mean, for us, we put out our first record in 1991,
Hmm.
and we sold 16,000 records out of the back of our car. First CD in the history of Newfoundland. All right, that garners a lot of attention from the industry. And while that's taking place, I first see the Rankin family over here at a festival in 1990,
Hmm.
and these amazing musicians, these three beautiful girls with these impeccable harmonies get up and do their thing, and EMI signs and they sell 100,000 records, and that kind of influence. And another one would have been like Rita McNeil would have been a big one.
Hmm.
But we were watching bands from over there, aside from the really commercially successful ones, like McGinty was a band, a pub band, or not even more than a pub band. Over here we had Ryan's Fancy and the Sons of Erin. They were two big Irish acts that just sort of gravitate to Newfoundland because their music was accepted, and they showed us that our music was cool.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the Pogues come out with Dirty Old Town, and now it's really cool. Because I was over trying to learn Stairway to Heaven and play for my buddies at our parties, and now all of a sudden Dirty Old Town was acceptable.
Hmm.
And you know when the music industry starts to shift this way, the music awards, the Atlantic, before the East Coast Music Awards existed, there was the Atlantic Music Awards.
Yes.
There was that Club Flamingo showcasing. We get to go there, and Rob Cohn and Brooks Time and people like that. Brooks had managed Ryan's Fancy, and was now managing Rita McNeil, and these people were superstars in
Hmm.
our mind, and they were selling a lot of records. And the EMI signed the Rankins. They did what they were doing. And then all of a sudden, the industry sort of starts to focus on, oh, Capitol wanted someone, Warner wanted someone, and we're the first Warner act that's signed on the East Coast. That spawns Great Big Sea. That
Hmm.
spawns Natalie McMaster, and then that's just the progression of it. We just happened to be, the band that came to Nova Scotia with 16,000 records sold, and that was, that at a time when you could sell records, you couldn't sell hard to sell 16,000 records now.
Oh, no, I don't even know if anyone would make them for you. Like
You
they'd
wouldn't
talk you out of it. They'd be like, "That's too many."
Well, some we're I don't know if you've seen it on the internet, but we're releasing our very first vinyl,
Yes,
and
I did.
so that's a three. We're not going to do a small job on it. We're doing, because next year is our 35th anniversary. We have a project called 35 for 35, which is, our body of work is vast. We have 15 studio records.
Hmm.
You know, and you go down to the record stores and you can, and it's that wide, like of CDs. But there's, people are not buying CDs anymore. People are downloading and streaming. And the record store here, Fred's Records in downtown St. John's, which is, one of the great stories of our industry. They're selling 80% vinyl now, and the young people.
Wow.
My 19-year-old is buying vinyl,
Hmm.
looking for old stuff, and they're, what they can find what they can find in the record stores is great. People are coming out with retro stuff, but they're
Yeah.
going to the flea markets and the secondhand stores looking for records,
Hmm.
which is
So
cool. I think that's really cool. You
that
you you listen to a vinyl record,
absolutely. Yeah.
right? You put it on, and you have to get up and actually walk over to it to change the song.
Hmm.
So when we put up records, and when we think about records, there's a definite theme goes to it, and we nowadays people are downloading one song or two songs, and you can't even go to the radio stations and say, oh, I'd like to hear this one, request, and they don't have it because it's not downloaded to the computer,
Yeah. Yeah, I
which
know. It's a completely different world than it used to be.
sure is. Yeah.
So for selecting the songs for the compilation, like you've already said it's three albums altogether that kind of encompasses 35-year history of the Irish Descendants. But how did you select songs so that they still, because they were from different albums in such a wide catalog, when you were narrowing it down, how did you get the albums to flow so that you could have that listening experience where you're putting it down and waiting to flip the sides?
Well, first of all, you're limited because
Hmm.
of the amount of time on a vinyl. You have 22 minutes per
Yeah.
side, or 23 minutes if you can compress them. And so that was a factor in selecting songs and putting in the order of the songs. Again, 35 songs out of a body of work that can, would have over 200 songs recorded. It's hard, not an easy task. You have songs that are fan favorites over the years. I've been singing songs from the first records, still
Hmm.
sing them. If you didn't do the Rattling Bog, or if I didn't do Cape St. Mary's or Catch the Wind, you're going to disappoint a whole bunch of people that come out to the show. And for us, we start off and are the result of we all worked in the fishery in the
Hmm.
inshore fishery here. So we formed in 1990. In 1992, federal government of Canada shuts down the inshore fishery, the complete fishery. 35,000 Newfoundlanders are now forced to go west. And we were singing songs of the downturn of the fishery. We were singing, I'll give you an example. In your neck of the wood, Bruce Guthrow wrote a song for us called the Rock in a Hard Place.
Hmm.
Top, you know, I got to get up and go get on the airplane tomorrow and leave my darling wife who's crying in the bed because I'm going to be gone for a month. And every family, there's not a household in Newfoundland that wasn't affected by that.
Hmm.
It was the biggest mass layoff in the history of Canada. Imagine you shut down, if you went to Windsor and shut down the complete automobile industry of Canada. That's what
Hmm.
happened. And so, we have been performing and singing to those people. And now second and third generation, the children of those expatriate Newfoundlanders went down the roads of Alberta with our records on, singing our songs, and they know every word of every song. It's a part of the fabric of their lives. It's a big part of their lives. And now I'm looking at 20-year-olds standing in front of me. I'm 58 years of age, and 35 years ago I was them,
Yeah.
and standing up watching them sing every word of every song. It blows my mind. We weren't a radio band. We
Hmm.
had very little radio success. They tried to get us to conform, to become, to get to see if we could get country radio. We didn't need it. We had. There's a million Newfoundlanders outside of Newfoundland. We have 500,000 here. There's a million in this
Hmm.
country. So, and then you would add on, our friends and people who are from your part of the world. All the East Coast is driven by Celtic music in some way or form. I was just at Celtic Colours, it blew my mind. 30 years ago, you wouldn't find 10 fiddlers, young fiddlers of the caliber that I saw. They were everywhere. Every show I went to, I went back to festival, the festival club after. It was just mind-boggling. I'm looking at Richard Wood, all right?
Hmm.
You know, Richard was a young guy, blew my mind. Right, the same as Ashley. First time I see Ashley McIsaac is at the Helen Creighton Awards in Halifax. He goes out in a blue blazer and a pair of flannels and black shoes. He plays the fiddle upside backwards and step dances. And I said, "What in the name of God is that?" And you get that. Then Richard Wood comes along, and I'm looking at Richard and I'm saying, "Jesus, I'm getting old." Richard is now 30 years later, still
Hmm.
still playing it, and all these up and coming great individuals. On the Christmas tour, we have two of the guys from Rum Ragged join us, but in
Yes.
their guy Colin, I forget Colin's last name. He's from Cape Breton, just mind-boggling. And his wife and her piano partner got up and did a show, blew me away, like beyond. So that wave from 35 years ago has spawned an incredible amount of talent that now exists and will hopefully continue to exist.
It did seem like we kind of hinted at it too. Like I was saying, oh, the 90s music scene was very robust at the time. So we kind of have those ebbs and flows and all those things. And it does, from my end anyway, seem like there is a little bit of a resurgence. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm focused on a niche environment of East Coast music, but it does seem like there's a large appetite out there and a lot of acts are starting to make their presence known in the region. So like I'm curious from your point of view, where you've been in the industry this whole time. Like, do you see things are kind of like on an upswing, or is it just a new beast these days?
Well, it definitely would be like, if I was to start a band back then when we started the band, there was four of us. We all had our talent, we all had our individual talents, and some extremely incredible players. Good musicians. The fiddler, from the original band back then, it would be hard to was hard to find a replacement for him. 7 or 8 years into it, starts to develop. In St. John's right now, I can call a dozen. I don't
Yeah.
even have to rehearse with them. They know the material.
Hmm.
I've had I've had 10 fiddlers over the years. They're all tremendous players. The young lady that I have playing with me now, she's from Sackville, New Brunswick. She moves to Newfoundland to get it. She takes a music. She's going to school doing a music program over here, teaching, performing with all the bands downtown. When bands like me head out of town, I take fiddlers and bouzouki players and accordion players with me. So that leaves voids in other outfits that are playing
Hmm.
just pubs. She's filling in, and when I need it, when the direction of the fiddler before her, he decides that he's going to do something different, and goes off, and I have to get a new player. Bang on. I didn't have to rehearse. She knows it. She knows, and delighted to be able to do it. 35 years ago, that didn't exist. And
Yeah.
what I saw in Cape Breton this year, it was incredible. Problem is, there is a problem, is that records are hard to sell.
Hmm.
So the efforts of the reward for your effort, records now are calling cards to allow us to go out and do things. And you become sensations now because of TikTok and people kind of managed. There's a lot of Justin Bieber becomes Justin Bieber from
Hmm.
the internet, and I suppose in many ways that has its positive things as well. I mean, I get regular email from a place in Seoul, South Korea called O'Kim's Irish Bar in Seoul. Can you send us over more music, or we're playing your tunes? And,
Cool.
so does the Irish Descendants get heard in Seoul, South Korea without it? No, we don't. But it doesn't translate into record sales, which become help you along in the business. It's we sold, some of our records sold 80,000 copies. You
Yeah.
make money when you sell 80,000 copies. Songwriters are getting royalties on that, and that changes a little bit when you're doing it at when streaming is the thing. And again, they're not listening to the whole records anymore,
Hmm.
which is that's why going back into vinyl for it's a breath of fresh air. But again, it's a big investment. These packages that I'm selling, they cost a fortune to produce them.
Oh,
To
I
man,
could imagine.
right? So it's a big risk, and that's not a risk that a lot of bands are able to do. How do you tell a band that you're going to press 500 vinyl albums that are $30 a pop?
Hmm.
All of a sudden, these kids gotta, even though you can record them in your bedroom. We used to pay $80 an hour, $100 an hour for studio time back in the old days. You can do it. You can do it. I can do it here on my phone now,
Yeah.
essentially. So things have changed a lot. But a lot of these bands, if one out of 100 does it, there's so many more of them that the opportunity comes there, and you're going to see some tremendous, with that kind of musicianship and that kind of ability. You're going to see some really special things happen.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And I think that we definitely had an era of people being able to kind of focus on their artistic crafts over a couple of years, and some of that's starting to pay off now. And we,
There's way more to the music and the recording industry than the bands.
hmm.
There's the engineers, there's the producers, there's the songwriters, there's the management that promote it. Wendy called you.
Yeah.
Wendy Phillips, 30 years.
Hmm.
I watched her develop, a niche in the East Coast music scene. She's essential. and what her skills have developed. And there's more Wendy Phillipses coming every day. There'll be people who are, the people who are interested in the industry. It is
Yeah.
an industry business, and for what I do, uh, you know, less than 50% of it is performing.
Yeah.
I don't really, over the years, I've always had good help around me, and I love performing. Don't get me wrong; it's the most intoxicating experience of your life to get up there and be someone else for a few minutes and affect people in a way. I can make people cry. I can make them laugh. You can make people feel really, really good. And as a self-conscious young man, that gave me a whole new lease on life when I first started. Oh, wow, I'm up here doing this. This is really cool. That's a high that you get when you first start, that continues on all the way through. I got up at Festival Club last week. I was there as a solo artist, and I get up with Rum Ragged, who are the band is there.
Hmm.
You know, through I've they've all played in my band over the years, so it's no problem. Just get up and do the songs that they know, and it's just the adrenaline, that the feeling that gives you. You're in a room full of people who are really want to hear what you're doing, and just tell your stories, sing your songs, make them feel good, and yourself at the same time. I said first night I was there, I sang till 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Had two beer,
Yeah.
and I was trading off songs with songwriter, young guy from PEI, Shane Pendergast is his name.
Yes.
Sang. I'm here now listening to this 26-year-old songwriter blowing me away with songs. I'm going to record his songs. I did a show with a guy named Miles Davidson in St. Peter's.
Hmm.
Blew me away. Had some international artists, blew me away. But watching this whole thing transpire, and that particularly, that whole the Celtic colors is just a magical thing.
It's really nice to hear too that it's been built up over the couple of years too, is kind of that experience that you are explaining. It's nice to hear feedback from people that are attending that it's meeting that expectation.
Well, I didn't stay at the Gaelic College, which was kind of bittersweet. I did have, I was staying over in Bedeck, one of the hotels, and I, get up for breakfast in the morning. Shows like, they pick you up at 1 o'clock, go do the show type thing. But I get up for breakfast, and I'm, there by myself, and it was very rare for me to play by myself. I've never really done a lot of that, but I enjoyed it. I'm still telling my stories and singing the songs. But I'm walking over to the restaurant for breakfast at the hotel, and I'm looking at the cars in the parking lot, and it's Tennessee and Ontario and Kentucky and Massachusetts. They're not there. This is after Labor Day. I'm, in the tours industry at the East Coast. It's like someone shuts off the lights on Labor
Yeah.
Day, and I'm looking at these hotels blocked. And you walk into the breakfast room, and some lady from Tennessee walks over and says, "Caught your show last night. Really enjoyed it." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool." And you're meeting so many people and gaining new fans, and the hotels were full. Look what it's doing for the tourism. Look what it's doing for the
Amazing.
deck, and what it did for all the little towns that have something extra that happens right into October. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I love to hear it. It's super healthy for our industry and our artists. It's going to get people exposure outside of our communities and bring new people into our communities. So it's good all around.
I had three different presenters, one from Tennessee, one from Massachusetts, and one from Victoria, British Columbia. I'll get work out of all of them.
So, your Christmas tour, I am curious about that too, where we've talked a lot about you've had lineup changes over the years and how the Irish Descendants as a band, it has quite a big legacy on the East Coast, but 15 years of doing a Christmas show, you've had two Christmas albums out, if you count the gift from years ago, and then the album that was out last year. So, what can you tell me about the changes that you would have had to that performance over a decade and a half of performing
It was even longer than that.
essentially.
I mean, since the first for album, The Gift comes out in 2001. So I mean, it's really, we haven't done a Christmas tour every year, but initially we did,
Mhm,
and it spawns out of one song. But Christmas here in Outport, Newfoundland, is a special thing, and I'm sure it's just exactly the same in parts of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and we have something that's unique and really uh, a special thing because families get together, music is performed. I mean, some of my first performing for my family happens I'm a youngster. I'm 15 years old, showing my grandparents my new skill, and uh, that spawns itself because what we do is not contrived.
mhm,
The Rankin family didn't do what they did because they thought it would be a commercial success. After it becomes a commercial success, then they sort of we all try and figure out a way to make it more successful. But what we do is so grassroots. It comes right from the heart. It comes from the kitchens at the knees of our uncles and fathers and grandfathers, where we learn our skills, where we learn our songs, and we get that bitten by that bug. And Christmas time is one of the times where, like, I wasn't home singing Christmas songs at Christmas time. I was
mhm,
singing Irish, and again, but when you have a following of people, that want a little bit of Christmas, the Christmas spirit. A lot of Christmas shows. I'm watching over your way. The Barrows have a Christmas tour, big one. Over here, the Ennis Sisters, another band that,
mhm.
young women that spawned right out of what we started. And wasn't us who really started. We were taking, we got that from Irish bands that settled in Newfoundland. And but that's so normal and natural for us to come out and sing those songs. We're going to sing Christmas songs in the spirit of the season. It's talking about the birth, the Christ child's birth, that sort of thing. But I'm going to tell my stories. I'm going to tell the stories about my family.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell the story about how Dad was late getting home on Christmas morning because he was singing down the harbour and Mom was crooked and didn't cook the turkey. The year of the white turkey, I call it. No, that's just as natural for me to tell those stories. My crowd have heard those same stories over and over again. We get new stories added into the old stories, and that's the fabric, and we weave that fabric into the tapestry of who we are. And that's so important. I mean, can you imagine what Christmas is like at the Rankins or the Barrows?
Oh
And
yeah.
still is today. I mean, I go off and I do 25 or 30 shows. But when I get home, there'll be music. My brothers will come together, our families will come together, same as we always did, and it's as natural as breathing.
And you have a lot of dates on the East Coast, but I am curious too, where you have a large selection of Ontario dates. Does that kind of indicate that that's where the fan base is, or a higher demand from those regions?
Well, the opportunity knocks. Okay, so we did have an opportunity to play the National Arts Centre in Ottawa,
Cool.
which is a very prestigious gig for us to do. So we have toured all throughout Ontario, all throughout every province, really. And I'm getting flack from my fans in Western Canada right now. When are you coming out here? I made
Mhm.
three. I made 3 trips to Alberta this summer.
Yeah.
So like we'll take the success of this tour at home, word gets out, and we'll bring it to Alberta next year. We can't leave home out. They want it. It
Yeah.
starts Christmas. It's a tradition for them. So we can't. We have to make sure that we always fulfill. Lots of times, like this year, we're not. There was places where we would be doing 2 shows, so we're taking a chance on just doing one show and expanding, into Ontario and into the Maritimes. And again, it's a natural progression.
Yeah.
Same. So the first time I went to Nova Scotia to play the lower deck, I was really looking to get to the Rebecca Cohn. I wanted to get, to do the things that we were, to all just stepping stones, adding new fans, maintaining that connection with fans, and again, I'm in the third generation now. You
Yeah.
only you need one more before I won't be able to do it. I'm going to go till I'm 75, I figure. So I got another less than 20 years left. So that's hard. That's rough. That's I don't even want to say it, but I'm 58 years old. I'm in good health, and I'm in good. My voice is like wine; it gets better with age. People still enjoy the
I love
sound,
it.
and they love the story. So it's something that you can't. It's just so intoxicating, you couldn't give it up.
Oh, the stories will only get better too.
Sure, they will. Yeah, yeah. Add them now. I mean, I got Gen Xers in the band now. Sure, but
Yeah.
they got their own language.
Yeah, exactly. So, expect to hear some more from the band going into 2025. But in the meantime, we can send people to pre-order that vinyl collection. It's available on CD as well, I believe.
As CD, it will have
Yeah.
CDs of well in the package. Some nice postering, some like, lots of nice little things inside. The big thing is a 100 page glossy coffee table book of the history of the
Oh,
band.
well, that's fun. That'd
That's
be amazing.
that's an amazing thing. And the designer is a guy named Judd Haynes from over here.
Yes, I'm
Judd,
familiar.
you're familiar with Judd? Like the people who are manufacturing are telling Judd this is one of the best things they have ever seen. And Judd's just a wizard. So
Yeah, no, I'm becoming a big fan of his work. The more I hear his name and dive into his past works, I'm starting to realize what an impact he has himself on our region.
an incredible cat. Like, and I know Judd from the early days because he had a band called Winter Sleep,
Hmm.
and so we were around. They were right around that indie band type thing. So we were crossing paths back then, and he's from home. So watching his work has been amazing.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear. And for anyone that's interested in some of those live dates, the description for this episode will have a full listing of them. As I said, there's quite a few dates, so you have a robust tour planned in front of you.
New dates for the new year will start to appear soon. So as
Amazing.
we organize and plan out the year, usually we go to Western Canada in February and run into St. Patrick's Day. Although this year we're kind of all over the place around St. Patrick's. It's not St. Patrick's Day anymore; St. Patrick's Week. So
Amazing.
here, there, and everywhere. But you know, that's normal, and we just love. I just absolutely love getting up on stage. There's nothing like it. It's a fulfills an awful lot, ticks a lot of boxes. That's for sure.
Well, we all love to see it, so hope to keep seeing you for the next 20 plus years out there on a stage.
Please God and the weather, like and if you'd like to come to the show, I'll let Wendy know to offer you tickets.
Amazing.
Bring whoever you like and come out and see it. It's a great evening, and you'll get a sense of the you get when you're playing for 35 years, you learn a few tricks and you again, but it's not a contrived thing. It's just who we are. And
Yeah.
I remember, the instrumental in my success is a man by the name of Sam Snyderman, Sam the record man.
Yes.
And I remember him telling me he was at my wedding. I said I got married. My first wife and I got married on a Saturday night, and on Sunday morning we signed an international recording deal with Warner Music. And he was there, and the president of Warner was there, vice president, the A&R reps were there. And he looked at me and he said, "Don't you ever do anything more than be yourself, because that's what people want." And
Amazing. Words to
become
live by.
that's words to live by for sure.
Thank you for your time. And I am looking forward to catching one of these performances. So we'll definitely be in touch in the near future. And I hope to hear from you in the next year as well.
I'm going to tune in DNA now.
Thank you very much. Talk
All right.
soon.
God bless. Thanks. Bye.